Hey, what's up everyone? GameDad here, coming at you guys with a brand new compilation video, this time taking a look at everything that I released for my Game Boy collection. Now, if you are new to the channel, please be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below, as well as that little notification bell so you get an alert every time I got a new video coming out. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and dive in and check out all the games that I released in my Nintendo Game Boy collection series.
Batman Forever was released by Acclaim Entertainment in 1995 and is a fun side-scrolling beat-em-up that actually plays a lot better than I expected it would. For being on the original Game Boy, the graphics are pretty decent and the gameplay is smooth. Bomberman GB was released in 1994 by Hudson Soft and is one of the Super Pack games that adds color when using a Super Game Boy. As with all Bomberman games, you are given a time limit and enough bombs to take out all of the enemies and obstacles in your path. You have to be careful not to get hit by enemies or blow yourself up in the process, though. Bonks Adventure was released by Hudson Soft in 1989 and is a primitive port of the TurboGrafx game of the same name. The gameplay is fun, but with a much lower frame rate and no color. The audio design wasn't bad, but I still prefer the TurboGrafx version over this one. This was an okay attempt, but it needed some more love than this got. The Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle 2 was released in 1991 by Kemco and is a sequel to the first game. I do like this one more though, as it feels more challenging and more polished than the first game. You must go around the castle collecting keys in different rooms to progress further, all while avoiding enemies like Foghorn Leghorn. Castlevania II Belmonts Revenge was released by Konami in 1991 and is a super fun handheld Castlevania game with surprisingly good graphics for what it was made for. Of course there's no color, but the gameplay is fluid and it's just what you would expect from a Castlevania game. There's a ton of enemies and just the right amount of challenge. I highly recommend this game. Donkey Kong was released in 1994 by Nintendo and is exactly what you would expect. Classic Donkey Kong arcade action on the Game Boy. This game is a ton of fun on the Super Game Boy because it adds fun themes and color to the game. Definitely the way to go when playing this one. Donkey Kong Lan was released by Rare in 1995 and brings a Donkey Kong Country style game straight to the Game Boy. Even though it doesn't feel like the same adventure, the graphics for the time were absolutely amazing and the game is very fun. I don't know how they were able to port the awesome graphical style to the Game Boy, but they did it very well. Donkey Kong Land 2 was released in 1996 by Rare and is a continuation of the previous game, this time adding Dixie Kong into the mix. This game is just as fun as the first one with all new mechanics thanks to the new Kong. Dr. Mario was released by Nintendo in 1990 and plays just like it does on the NES, perfectly. Due to the lack of color, they had to get creative with how to display the viruses and pills, but the changes they made still work out great. Overall, the game is just as addicting as it is on the console. Final Fantasy Legend 3 was released in 1991 by Square and is a great mini Final Fantasy game. It doesn't have the substance to it that a traditional Final Fantasy game has, but it still is pretty packed with enemies, weapons, and story. The game has very detailed graphics and plays quite smooth. Gauntlet II was released by Atari Games in 1986 and is a solid adventure-style game, but the overall presentation is seriously lacking. But that is understandable considering how early in the Game Boy's lifespan that this game was released. It's hard to make out the various characters and monsters, but the game works with what it was given. The Lion King was released in 1994 by Virgin Interactive and makes a solid attempt at porting over the game from other consoles. The graphics in comparison are primitive, but the gameplay is solid, and it makes for a fun game. I wish this would have received a Super Pack release because it probably would have played great. Mortal Kombat 2 was released by Midway in 1993, and to say that this is a primitive port would be an understatement. While the characters look good, they essentially have no frames between each action. They're just from point A to point B immediately, and it makes for very jumpy gameplay in my opinion. And that just isn't fun to me. I love this game, just not on Game Boy. Motocross Maniacs was released in 1989 by Konami and feels like a souped-up version of Excitebike. With better graphics, new track pieces, and the addition of collectibles, this game is actually a ton of fun. I really enjoyed playing this one, and I bet it was a huge hit whenever it was first released. Marble Madness was released by Atari Games in 1984, and I don't really remember much of this on Game Boy as a kid, but I remember having a ton of fun playing this with my older brother on NES. He ended up getting one for Christmas one year, and this was one of the games we ended up playing all the time. Difficult, but a lot of fun. Now up next we got Mole Mania by Nintendo that was released in 1996. Now, I really enjoyed playing this game as a kid. because it's simple, it's fun, and it has, kind of a cutesy theme to it, and it definitely reminds me a lot of the Adventures of Lolo games on the NES. And here we have Ms. Pac-Man, released by Namco in 1982. And this game, obviously, it doesn't play as well as the arcade version does, but it's actually really impressive for a handheld. And playing through a Super Game Boy, you actually get full color, just like you can see in this gameplay footage. Now here we have NBA All-Star Challenge, released by Acclaim Entertainment in 1992. Now, this game, even though it came out in 92, graphically is not that great, but it's still pretty fun. It's like being able to just go one-on-one with somebody in a fun half-court game. So, not the greatest, but it's not bad. Up next is Oddworld Adventures by Oddworld Inhabitants, and this was released in 1997. Now, I love the Oddworld franchise. I think it's quirky, it's weird, and, just like the name says, it's odd. Now, on Game Boy, I didn't really care for this version too much. It was kind of clunky in its gameplay, but overall, it wasn't that bad. Now here we have another Konami classic, and that's Operation C, released in 1991. And this is exactly what it seems like. It is a Contra game on the Game Boy. Now, if you're a fan of Contra from the NES or even the Super Nintendo, this is definitely a must-own for your Game Boy. Another Namco oldie but goodie, and that is PacMan, released in 1980 for the Game Boy. And this game does not look as pretty as Miss Pac-Man does. It gets you where you need to go, it gets you some classic Pac-Man action, but that is just about it. The game doesn't play very well, but it's okay for a handheld. Now, I know there's a lot of fans of this next one, that is Paperboy by Atari Games, released in 1985, but personally, I have never been a fan of the Paperboy franchise. I didn't really care for it all that much. I know a lot of people do like it, but it's not really my cup of tea. Now here is the first of my Pokemon games for the Game Boy, and that is Pokemon Blue version, released in 1986. Now I won't go too much into the gameplay of Pokemon since basically everybody knows what it is, but here you can see that cool blue background that the Super Game Boy adds since it is the blue version. Up next is Pokemon Red version, again, Nintendo, and 1996, came out at the same time. And the only real difference, other than your starting Pokemon and some different Pokemon around the world, is again, you get this cool red background signifying that it is the red game. Alright, now here we have something kind of special, and that is Pokemon Green version. Now, this did come out by Nintendo in 96 in Japan, but my copy is actually a special translated version from the video games database. So it's pretty cool. I was able to order this from them, complete in box with all kinds of little feelies. Now here we have my personal favorite of the original generation, that is Pokemon Yellow version, released by Nintendo in 1998. Now this one I always was drawn to more because it actually felt like it followed the show a lot more. And then plus, who doesn't want to teach a Pikachu how to surf? That was just awesome. Now the last game for this video is the Ren and Stimpy Show Vidietz, released by THQ in 1993. Now this game is your typical kind of platformer that came out around that time, just starring the Ren and Stimpy characters instead. It's not really anything to write home about. It was a typical platformer, and that was about it. Serpent was released by Cage Create in 1990, and for anyone that remembers those old school Nokia phones, this will bring back fond memories of the game Snake. Now the primary difference between that game and this one is that this actually has an AI computer opponent. Space Invaders was released by Taito in 1990 for the Game Boy, and it brings classic arcade action right into the palm of your hands. Now, thanks to the added functionality of the Super Game Pack mode, it actually gives you extra borders, different colors, and a little bit of added gameplay, as you can see in this capture. Star Wars was released by Capcom in 1992 and actually plays a lot like the NES version of Star Wars. You go through, you're playing as Luke, shooting your blaster, and as you go through the game, you get to do classic platforming action, all with the theme of Star Wars. Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back was released by Capcom in 1993, and although this game was released a year later, it actually, in my opinion, feels a lot more primitive. And as you can see through this capture, it doesn't even add color when played through Super Game Boy. Super Mario Land was released by Nintendo in 1989 and really shows off what the Game Boy was originally thought to be capable of. This was a brand new Mario adventure, and it actually looks pretty good for what it was. Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins was released by Nintendo in 1992 and was a major step up in the overall graphical quality, audio, and gameplay of the Game Boy. This is hands down one of my favorite original Game Boy games. Tasmania 2 was released by THQ in 1997. Now, although this game was actually released pretty late in life for the Game Boy, its graphics still seem fairly primitive. It doesn't add any color through the Super Game Pack, and the overall gameplay is kind of mediocre. Not the best game. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Follow the Foot Clan was released by Konami in 1990 and is an excellent attempt at bringing an arcade-style port to the Game Boy. This game has classic beat-em-up action, playing as your favorite TMNT characters. Tetris was released by Nintendo for the Game Boy in 1989 and brings the classic game right into your hands. Now, something that's interesting about this game is that it was actually the pack-in title for the Game Boy. Now, this is the first time that I'm aware of that Nintendo actually released a non-original IP as their pack-in title for one of their consoles. Tiny Toons Adventures Bab's Big Break was released by Konami in 1992 and is a fun little platform set in the Tiny Toons universe. You get to go around collecting items, jumping on enemies, and just having a good time in a classic little platforming game. Wario Land, also known as Super Mario Land 3, was released for the Game Boy by Nintendo in 1994, and this was the first real introduction we had to Wario, the anti-hero to Mario. Now, what's great about this game is that they took the formula from 6 Golden Coins and just expanded on it with a brand new character. So this gameplay is actually really good. Wario Land 2 was released for the Game Boy by Nintendo in 1998 and takes everything that was great about the first Wario Land game and makes it even better. The game is smoother, the graphics are better, there's new enemies and new worlds to explore, and overall the gameplay is actually a lot of fun. The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening was released by Nintendo in 1993 and is a brand new Zelda game that actually lets you take Link on a handheld adventure anywhere you wanted to go. This game pioneered so much of what was great about the Game Boy, and it used a classic like Zelda to do it.
And there you have it, everyone. That is everything that was in my Nintendo Game Boy Collection series. Now, since those videos came out, the collection has grown a bit, so maybe at some point in time I might do kind of an update video with games that have been added to the collection since. But for now, I think what was in the videos is still a pretty solid collection. If you think the same, let me know down in the comments below. Or if you have a suggestion for a game that you absolutely love on this handheld and you didn't see it in this video, let me know that down in the comments below. And while you're down there, please be sure to also hit those like and subscribe buttons, as well as that little notification bell so you're going to alert every time I got a new video coming out. Now, as always, I'm GameDad. I thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you later.